London's never really quiet. Even in the dead of night, there are still taxis driving, drunks shouting, and arguments echoing from top-floor windows. Cleaners and airport staff trudge through the darkened streets on their way to work, not looking up at the bar staff and security guards plodding home. It's probably better that it never gets really quiet, though. As much as the thief would like to be able to hear the footsteps of someone else coming his way, it's probably best that the noises out on the street mask his own. His theory is proven correct almost immediately as he jumps from the overpass down onto the construction site. He makes it over the barbed wire fence, but loses his footing on the landing and falls against a porta potty. The plastic wall splits, and he clatters through into the toilet. Sticking out a hand, he manages to stop himself. You'll never guess where his hand landed. Wonderful. For a moment, he slumps there, grumbling to himself, praying no one heard him. But outside, there's just the regular hum of London's nightlife. He's safe for now. He straightens up, opens the door of the porta potty, and steps out. He has to crane his neck back to look up at the structure in front of him. He's at the base of a block of flats, or at least what would have been a block of flats. He'd asked the chicken shop owner from across the street about this place earlier in the day. The man told him it was supposed to be a new development to attract young 20-something professionals to the area, but midway through construction, the company shut down. Now the shell of the building stands empty, waiting to be knocked back down. With any luck, there might still be some building equipment around here that he can salvage, or maybe a bit of copper wiring he can sell. At the very least, it'll put a roof over his head for a few nights. He's even got a toilet. Kind of. He'll scope the place out and call his wife in a bit. After a long day working the market stalls, she deserves her night in the soup kitchen tonight. That place had stopped letting him in after the last fight. The pair of them aren't exactly homeless. They just don't have a home right now. The thief sidles into the building, peering around in the gloom. Exposed concrete and girders surround him in every direction. There aren't many walls in place yet, just floors and ceiling, broken up by staircases and supporting pillars. It'll be quite exposed down here. He needs to head up higher to see if there are any more secluded spots for the night. As he climbs up the stairs, the thief hears voices above him echoing through the empty shell of a building. He peeks over the top of the stairs. This floor's a bit more divided up. There are a few walls in place. He sees the light of what must be a fire dancing around the edge of one of them. That's where the voices are coming from. Security guards wouldn't light a fire. They must be homeless. Ugh, the thief hates homeless people. Being surrounded by them so much at the moment is just demeaning. They have no morals, no standards, they just lie and steal. He spies a couple of backpacks leaning against the wall. He'll have to be quiet, but with a bit of luck, he can sneak over and take one of those packs without any of them hearing. He creeps up to the top of the stairs, and a piece of metal glints at him in the dark. A sledgehammer, lying there on the ground. He tiptoes over to it and lifts it into his arms. It's heavy. If he can give it a good swing, it'll keep him safe for sure. He grins and makes his way towards the packs on the ground. He gently loops a hand under the shoulder strap. 3, 2, 1... Clatter! An empty can falls out of the side and bounces off the concrete floor. What was that? Oh no. The thief shoulders the pack and runs, but it's too late. A pair of hands grab him and spin him around. The thief staggers backward but stays on his feet. 3 figures surround him in the dark. He doesn't have a choice. He swings the sledgehammer wildly. It takes all of his strength just to lift it, but sure enough, he feels it connect. He swings it back the other way, hard as he can. His arms strain from the effort. A man yelps in the darkness. Something heavy thuds to the floor. For a moment, all 4 of them stand there in silence. The thief holds the sledgehammer at the ready. He isn't sure if he's got the strength to swing it again, even with all this adrenaline. But the other men aren't looking at him. The 2 on either side stare at the man in the middle. Or rather, what used to be the man in the middle. The man's friends bolt for the exit. They run off into the night without a look back. Neither will ever be able to explain what they saw tonight. It takes a long time for the thief's hands to warm up by the fire. They feel cold and don't stop trembling for a long time. So long that the sun is about to come up. There's something red on the thief's hands. He can just about make it out in the flickering light. Must be blood. He wipes it on the ground and reaches into his pocket, fishing out the little brick phone. He's only got 5% battery left and almost no minutes on the sim, no time to explain the details. He just calls his wife, gives her the location, and tells her to come quick. She'll need to jump from the overpass soon before there are too many commuters on the rails. He's moved the body, of course. He's sitting next to it right now, actually. Couldn't leave it out in the open for anyone to see. In this little nook with the fire, he's well hidden from the outside world. There's graffiti on the walls. This must be a popular spot. If anyone comes and disturbs him, he knows what he's doing with them. The sledgehammer leans against his leg. After about an hour, he hears footsteps on the concrete behind him. He whistles once. 2 whistles come back. His wife stops dead when she rounds the corner. He hadn't told her what had happened over the phone, just that he'd found them a new spot. She's staring at the body lying next to him. Rose petals and candles usually work better. He shrugs and looks back at the flames. Not his fault. Self-defense, as always. But she doesn't stop staring. It's starting to annoy him now. It's like she's never seen a body. What's wrong with her? Can't she? Then he hears it. Soft, rasping breathing. Very slowly, the thief turns his head. Lying there on the ground next to him, with half of his head caved in, the man is still alive, staring at them both through one horrified eye. The thief grasps the sledgehammer and stands up. That just makes no sense. His wife looks puzzled too. They look at the man lying on the ground in more detail. A chunk of his head is missing completely, but the wound underneath is healed over. The flesh and brain underneath looks like it's been cauterized, as if he'd been burned. And surely you can't still be alive with that big of a chunk of your brain missing. Strange, his wife mumbles. Her hand joins his on the hilt of the sledgehammer. She takes it from him and caves in the homeless man's head. In just a few swings, his head is a red, mushy pulp on the floor. Definitely dead now. They both stare at the body for a bit. No more breathing. Lovely. Problem solved. But the red mush doesn't look like blood. Incredulously, his wife extends a finger and dips it into the red mush on the homeless man's head. She raises it to her mouth and has a taste. Salsa. 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 He doesn't believe her. He leans down to take a nibble of the red mush on the ground. Sure enough, the cool taste of pico de gallo meets his tongue. It's not bad, you know. Ignoring the sweaty grime of the homeless man's flesh, it's actually pretty good. The thief looks over at his wife. She scoops 2 fingers through the goop and sticks it in her mouth. A grin spreads across her face, a glint lighting up her eye. He's been married to her long enough to know what this face means. She's got a plan. Finding the jars proves to be the biggest issue, or at least finding intact jars. Dumpster diving has never been the thief's favorite pastime. Feels a bit too homeless for him. But as he climbs out of his 12th bin of the day with nothing to show for his efforts but a measly little glass jar, he thinks he's had enough. He tosses a rotten potato at his wife. It splatters in her hair. It would probably stink anywhere, but amongst all this trash, the potato is probably the best-smelling thing around. You throw one more bit of trash at me, and I'll be dipping tortillas in what's left of you, she says. The thief's had enough. He clambers out of the dumpster and storms over to his wife. This plan sucks. Why does he have to be the one covered in trash all the time? Why is he the one always breaking into construction sites? He raises a fist above his head, just as she spots the jar in his hand and squeals in excitement. She pecks him on the lips and excitedly tells him that they should have enough of them now to get started. Her lips taste of rotten potato. Back in the construction site, they get to work. Taking it in turns, they raise the sledgehammer above their heads and bring it down on the homeless man's body. With every hit, they expect the magic to stop working, but it doesn't. Dollops of salsa pool where bruises would normally form. While one of them pummels the corpse, the other scoops the salsa into jars, carefully screwing on the lid and writing little labels to go alongside. Artisanal pico de gallo, £3.50. Salsa made straight from the heart. It's not all made from a heart though, is it? The thief says. Only one jar will be. The rest will be made from the bowels and stuff. It's all connected, innit? You can taste some in a bit and tell me if any of it's different. He doesn't really fancy trying bowel salsa, but his wife makes him. She's the one holding the hammer. You know what? If he didn't know it was bowel salsa, he never would have guessed it. Tastes pretty much the same as all the rest. The pair of them managed to mash about half of the body into salsa that day. The remaining carcass lies on the concrete rather neatly. There's no blood or gore at all. If anything, this is a pretty sterile affair. Just salsa. What we calling our business then? The thief asks. How about Joe's? His wife rolls her eyes at him and thinks for a moment. El martillo y la pulpa. The thief doesn't know any Spanish, so he just laughs and pretends he gets the joke. At least, he hopes it was a joke. 2 days later, business is booming. From the first thing in the morning until late in the afternoon, The jars of salsa are selling like hotcakes. The two of them can hardly believe it. At lunchtime each day, the thief has to go back to the apartment and restock. Those are their code words for going back to the dilapidated apartment complex and pulverizing the corpse of a homeless man with a sledgehammer, just in case that wasn't clear. At £3.50 per jar, their handmade recipe is pulling in the big bucks. Who'd have guessed that the homeless could be so profitable? The market they're selling in apparently has a strong Mexican migrant community living nearby. On top of that, a handful of local moms started sharing photos of the artisan salsa from the local market, which surged the demand. It might even be time to start jacking up the prices. Only, they've got a problem. As the thief arrives at the market with a wheelbarrow full of freshly filled jars, he pulls his wife to one side to have a whispered conversation with her. They're almost out of stock. And of course, by the word stock, they really mean the cold, rotting dead body. His wife looks at him incredulously. Does he really not see the solution here? If you're running low on ingredients and your product is flying off the shelves, what do? You go out and source yourself some more damn ingredients. As the thief walks away with his wheelbarrow and sledgehammer, he wonders why it's always him doing the messy jobs. But try as he might, the thief can't find any targets. He walks around all of the streets near the block of flats, but has no luck. He approaches one sleeping homeless man and kicks him in the shoulder, trying to wake him. Bad idea. The man starts yelling loud enough to attract the attention of everyone on the street. No amount of begging or bargaining is going to get this man to move an inch. The thief gives it a go anyway and watches in shock as the man buries his teeth into his ankle. Limping back up the stairs into their nook in the construction site, the thief has a scowl on his face. After a couple of hours, his wife arrives and joins him at the fire. It's a good profit today, even better than the previous day. Keep this up, and they'll be rich in no time. He grins at his wife. She leers back, then shoves the money back into her pocket. Hang on a minute. That wasn't part of the deal. They're partners, 50-50. She bares her teeth at him and tells him she's just holding on to it for now. The sledgehammer sits halfway between them. The thief glances down at it. So does his wife. But that night, they are in luck. A drunk wanders into the construction site. He's so wasted that he doesn't have time to figure out that he's been pummeled to death by a hammer until he's just a generous splodge of salsa fresca slowly oozing across the concrete floor. The following night, another two men saunter in. Then the thief convinces an obnoxious local with a dog to follow him into the place the afternoon after that. The dog wasn't worth the effort. It ran around a lot before they caught it and only produced enough salsa for a medium-sized garden party. But the haul is good. All of a sudden, they are overrun with work. Jar after jar after jar. Everyone in the area keeps coming back for more, even telling their friends about it. This salsa is to die for. They have to know the recipe. Dead Londoners, drunks, dogs, that kind of thing. The crowd of moms aren't quite sure what the joke was, but try to laugh anyway. Everything is going perfectly. Except, of course, for the thief's ankle. The bite mark went purple, and now it's on its way to green. The veins on his foot and up his leg are starting to look like a funny color. He should really go to the hospital, but he reckons it'll be okay. Besides, they don't really like him at any of the hospitals around here. He's had one too many visits, and been the reason for one too many for several other men. But that night, it's clear that something's wrong. As he and his wife sit on the pile of corpses next to their fire, he feels a cold sweat on his brow. His wife counts all of the coins into neat piles. There's more in front of them than they've ever shared before, but his head is feeling swimmy. The thief lies down on the corpse bed. He's back to back with an investment banker who took the wrong alley home on his walk home from work. "No lying down yet. You need to cook up a new batch before bed." His wife is glaring at him. He refuses, says he's too tired tonight and his ankle hurts. She starts grumbling at him about not pulling his weight. A switch flips in his head. "I'll do more work when you give me what I'm owed. The money. I want my share now." His wife cackles and jumps to her feet. Fat chance. He's not seeing a penny until he actually starts to contribute. She's the one who came up with the idea. She's the one who sells dozens of jars a day. She's the one holding the sledgehammer right now. His eyes widen. "What are you doing with that? You say your ankle's sick? Well, I know something that could help you with that." Before his woozy mind can register what's happening, the sledgehammer arcs through the air towards him. That sobers him up. Lucky for him, he manages to roll out of the way at the last moment, causing the sledgehammer to embed himself in the ground next to him. That's it. It's time for a hostile divorce. He hauls himself to his feet and grasps the hammer, pulling it as hard as he can towards himself. The metal connects with his chest, and he feels the salsa running down his ribs. He shoves her back. The The sledgehammer catches her shoulder and salsarizes it. Tomato chunks fly across the room and sizzle in the fire. Back and forth, the hammer swings, hitting the thief, then his wife, then him again, on and on, until nothing is left but a sledgehammer and 2 large piles of salsa. Usually it's the smell that alerts people to a dead body, except for once, it was actually a pretty pleasant smell. Forensic police had to consciously stop themselves from having a taste. One of them even happened to have some tortillas in the car that day. By the time he returned to the station that evening, the packet was empty. He swears to this day that he ate them dry. It wasn't long before the story broke. Some in the local press theorized that this was a bizarre viral marketing campaign from Doritos. Once that theory was out there, it wasn't long before the story died. No one likes overly aggressive advertising. To this day, Scotland Yard hasn't got a clue what was going on at that crime scene. One senior investigating officer was unofficially quoted shaking his head and saying, "I don't know what the hell happened here. Sometimes it's best to just not ask questions." We all know it takes 2 to tango, but I bet you didn't know it takes a sledgehammer to salsa. That was my attempt to draw some kind of lesson from SCP-3794. You can probably guess the nickname of this SCP already: the Salsa Sledgehammer. Currently stored in a standard item locker, this SCP is considered to be totally safe in the right hands. You could use it to demolish walls, break apart cinder blocks, or win over your new mother-in-law with a fresh bowl of homemade nachos. Assuming, of course, that you have the necessary ingredients. That is because when SCP-3794 makes sufficiently heavy contact with living tissue, it immediately converts the point of impact and surrounding area into salsa. Affecting roughly 3 to 8 centimeters around the impact points, this salsa does not adhere to the rest of the body and will immediately slide out of its crater and fall to the ground. Peering at the hole left behind, you will see that the nerve endings, capillaries, and even main arteries will all be instantaneously sealed off. This sledgehammer would make for a very clean murder weapon, if it wasn't for the human-sized amount of salsa you get everywhere in the process. You would need to ensure you smashed up every part of the body, though, as any disconnected limbs or tissues still function and follow orders from the brain as if nothing is wrong, as our thief learned only too well. The salsa itself is good. Nothing incredible, but not that bad either. It just goes to show that if you stick an artisan label on anything, then people go crazy for it. Testing on this sledgehammer has been suspended. A test subject was chosen to lie with his head over a generously sized serving bowl. Researchers swung the hammer and demolished half of the test subject's skull and brain in just one hit. Much to their surprise, however, the subject continued to exhibit all signs of consciousness, moving frantically around the room and even writing the word "helped" in the spilled salsa. The subject died 30 minutes later, the moment that researchers taste tested the dip. Since then, the sledgehammer has remained in its locker, although there is often now an air of suspicion whenever a jar of salsa shows up in the fridge in the break room. If you want to support this channel's important mission while also getting influence over the anomalies we cover and an exclusive look behind the scenes, check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the classified files of DrBob, such as SCP-512, Cowbell, for another anomalous object that unlocks a world of nightmares. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single anomaly as we delve further and further into the SCP Foundation's classified archives.